Are we there? Are we halfway through the journey to complete development? Have we reached boundaries which we have been trying to achieve for the past century? Since time immemorial, the concept of growth has been imprinted to our identities. We want skyscraping gross domestic and gross national products, optimized birth and death rates in Human Development Index, low infant mortality rate, and lengthened life expectancies, all engrossed from the Millennium Development Goals. Years passed until the rise of a new measure of development, the Sustainable Development Goals. A quote from Brundtland Report says, "Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs." Probably the most common quoted definitions of the term sustainable development. The Sustainable Development Goals, or also known as SDGs, are a global agenda adopted by countries in 2015 with a vision of ending poverty, protecting the planet, and ensuring that all people enjoy peace and prosperity. The United Nations anticipate all countries, leaving no one behind, to end poverty and hunger, improve education and maternal health, promote gender equality and women empowerment, clean water and sanitation for all, access to affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, advancement in the industry, infrastructure, reduce inequalities, build sustainable cities, responsible consumers and producers, diminish climate change, enhance life on land and below water, establish peace, justice, and strong institutions, and construct global partnerships. All of these to be achieved by 2030. What's the status quo? After 4 years after its implementation, progress in some areas were seen, such as the reduction of extreme poverty, widespread immunization, increased access to electricity, decreased child mortality rates. But on the other side of the coin, more countries are still vulnerable and continue to suffer. Increased inequality and extreme poverty in Southern Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. Increased global surface temperature. Exponential escalation of carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere. Higher ocean acidity. Heightened vulnerability on natural and man-made disasters. Intensification of global hunger. Multiplication of species susceptibility to extinction, and the list goes on. Are we not tired? Tired of the tension of the interplay of man and the standards he established? Maybe we're wrong. We might have solidified a parameter that led us to multifaceted problems with extreme complexities that we may or we may not be able to find solutions to. Maybe we're wrong. We have been obsessed with growth and development. We are excessively living, and we have been too much. Now think of the development. The global economy has grown by 380% since 1980, and yet we still make efforts for growth. Scientists found out that we have grown more than what we are expected. Therefore, we have grown too much. This growth entails overconsumption and overproduction, especially from rich countries that contributed to the global crisis we tackle today. While the United States and Canada consumes about 8 global hectare per person, contrary to the 1.8 global hectare average annual requirement, the rich has been overconsuming about 4.7 times more than the necessary. Where do we look now? What should be our standard? James Hickel highlighted the significance of the ideal societies, which have high life expectancy rates, low to average levels of income, and reduced consumption of resources, deviating from the Western models as our standards of efficient living. Cuba, Peru, Honduras, Nicaragua, Tunisia are exemplars of these ideal societies where people live long and happy, consume within the average level, and has relatively low levels of income compared to the United States. James Hickel highlighted the significance of the ideal societies which have high life expectancy rates, low to average levels of income, and reduced consumption of resources, deviating from the Western models as our standards of efficient living. Cuba, Peru, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Tunisia are exemplars of these ideal societies where people live long and happy, consume within the average level, and has relatively low levels of income compared to the United States. Is it time for de-development? A call out for the rich countries for their excesses? Minimalism is not about giving less amount of effort in our day-to-day living. It is about reducing and removing all of the clutters from our lives, be it in physical, mental, emotional, or time-related, so that we can really focus on the things that are important to us, getting away from the probable predicaments coming from social and technological advancements. The Philippines having top-of-the-world consumer when it comes to internet usage, as we innovate our technologies, we developed a certain practice that we almost adapt as a habit. A Filipino has an average internet usage of about 10 hours a day, and in Southeast Asia and the global scale, the Philippines is one of the top consumers. This takes us half of our day consumption in gadgets, surfing through social media, and sharing relevant as well as irrelevant information that cannot even contribute to the average users of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and others. Habits are notoriously difficult to build, and getting them to practice can feel impossible. That's why people who are experts in developing new habits suggest that we should take things slow and steady. They say that we should not spread ourselves too thin and bite more than we can chew. We are so much hungry to reach further, to push beyond our boundaries, what previously thought possible. Then in a point in our time, we forget that we should take our things slow to practice simplicity. The concept of de-development may sound off-putting because it gets impressions that the term suggests zero or no development, stopping the advancements and growth, though it does not mean that way. It's essentially advising the rich countries to stop overproducing and overconsuming, basically being sustainable, and catching down on the developing countries because catching up takes years. Therefore, this redirects us to a new realization that being less is being more. The reduced consumption and cut back production will foster a more positive version of growth through sustainability in which the quality of life is not compromised. We need to replace GDP with a saner measure of human progress, such as the genuine progress indicator, and abandon the notion of exponential economic growth without end. In this age of rapid and successive innovations in almost all aspects, we choose to be less